Hello again and welcome back. My name is Tom Nelson and this is video lesson number 2, part 2, Cellular Basics. This is part of that massive video lesson series on diabetes control, 6 steps to gaining complete control over diabetes. In the past video you learned a few basic facts about the human cell. You learned about its basic structure, some basic facts about your vascular system, how blood flows to all 37 trillion of your cells that make up your body, and how the receptors, transporters, and gates function. Now we're going to go inside the typical cell to see what goes on inside. This is the human cell, and you have 37 trillion of them again, remember, and that there are various types. There's 350 different types. You recall that this is a very tiny structure. It's only 1/10 the diameter of a human hair, which, in case you haven't tried it, if you look at a human hair from the end, it disappears because it's too small to be seen with the naked eye. Yet these are 1/10 that, and there's 37 trillion of them that operate independently, that keep your body functioning and alive. All right, so first we're going to look at the nucleus, which is City Hall. And you can see City Hall is located over in this particular illustration on the right hand side over there near the center. So City Hall is what runs your little cells. Everyone, we call them little cities because they're so similar to very small little cities. City Hall is where your body stores 2 copies of all your DNA, and it's those DNA that run everything that goes on within the city limits of that cell, that little tiny city. And again, those DNA is unique to you as could possibly be. In other words, you are the only living creature with DNA exactly like yours. So next, we're going to look at factories. I call them factories. They're called by scientists rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Those factories, which you see located down in the bottom of the right over here, those are extremely important to your health. They manufacture amino acids, hormones, and enzymes. Those factories, starting with the rough endoplasmic reticulum, as you see on the right, that rough endoplasmic reticulum has bumps on it, and that's why it's called a rough endoplasmic reticulum. And those bumps are called ribosomes. And those ribosomes are very specific. They receive instructions from City Hall as to what amino acids they are to produce. There's 1,000 different amino acids produced in these factories throughout your body. And 20 of those are called primary amino acids. They are called primary because they're used to manufacture just about all of those 1,000 elementary amino acids. And of those 20 primary, 8 of them are essential. That means your factories, these factories, cannot manufacture them anywhere in your body. And they are very important. Practically everything your body produces requires those essential amino acids. There's 8 of them, and they can only come from your diet, from an external source. Things like eggs, meat, or you can get all 8 of them from chia seeds. So those amino acids are the building blocks for virtually everything that goes on in your body, every part of your body. And those amino acids then are in turn going to be used to manufacture these enzymes and hormones. So first it produces the hormones. And it does it based on recipes that are supplied by the DNA. And so these hormones that are going to be produced are going to be made from those amino acids, and each hormone has a unique recipe of its own. And those hormones, let's take, for example, insulin. Let's say, for example, that this particular cell that you're looking at is actually a cell that is in your pancreas, the beta cell, and that is the cell that produces insulin. So City Hall gets a message from your hormones in your intestines, the amylin and incretin, and those hormones give the little man in your control room, which you'll learn more about later, they tell him about how much insulin is going to be needed based on what you've eaten and how much glucose is probably going to be produced. So the little guy in your control room, your hypothalamus, is going to send a message to City Hall of these beta cells, and it's going to instruct them that you need to produce X amount of insulin and release it into the bloodstream so that it can be distributed and utilized by every cell in your body. So the recipe for insulin requires 57 different amino acids. So those ribosomes are going to produce those 57 different amino acids, and then both of these two factories are going to continue on to assemble those amino acids to fold them into a very precise shape, because hormones all have a very unique shape, and the only way your body can use them is they act like a key in a lock somewhere in your body, and that key has to fit that lock precisely in order for it to work. And so these hormones have to be very precisely produced. And so that is how the insulin is produced. It will be produced according to the amount required by City Hall. It'll be collected together and then exported into the bloodstream. There's other things produced by these factories, and that would be enzymes. There's also about 1,000 of those. And those 1,000 enzymes can literally number in the millions each. Now think about that. Here we have a cell that's 1/10 the diameter of a human hair, which is too small for us to even see, but yet we have millions of these enzymes inside those cells, those cities. Enzymes are unique. Those enzymes each only do one thing. Like, for example, sugars are broken down, the glucose is broken down into something called glycogen, which is a compact form of glucose so that it can be stored in the warehouse until it's needed. There are specific enzymes that are made to do that, and they only do that one job, and they're used up once they've done their job, and they have to be replaced. So these factories are constantly manufacturing enzymes to replace the ones that are used. So again, each enzyme only does one thing. And since there's over 1,000 of them, some of them numbering in the millions, that suggests that there's a lot of work that has to be done inside that cell. That means that every time something is imported into that city through that membrane, it's going to have to be modified by its own specific enzyme and then stored until it's needed and used. So every second of every minute, there's 35,000 enzyme reactions going on inside each and every single one of your 37 trillion little tiny cities. That is a lot. If you do the math, 35,000 times 37 trillion is a mind-blowing big number. And yet that's happening every second of every minute in every single one of the cells in your body. That's huge. It's absolutely mind-blowing. This second factory, the endoplasmic reticulum, the smooth one, that factory usually does a lot of finish assembly from the first factory, but it also does other things. For example, those that are located in your liver have a very important function. They pull chemicals and unwanted substances out of your bloodstream into those specialized cells in your liver that have a bunch of these secondary endoplasmic smooth reticulum factories, and they pull together amino acids, enzymes, and other things that are going to break those things down into a water-soluble substance, and then they will export them into the bloodstream so that your kidneys can filter them out and get rid of them. So they play a very important role in terms of cleansing your blood of invaders. So next is the Golgi Apparatus. I call it a trucking company. So once everything is almost finished assembling from the first two factories, it then goes to the Golgi Apparatus. The Golgi Apparatus will finish the final assembly of all of these products that are produced in those factories, and then it will distribute it. It becomes the trucking company that will bundle it up. Some of it will be exported, like the insulin, for example, is going to be bundled up into large packages and then passed through the barrier, that membrane of those cities, and to the bloodstream, where they will then be distributed throughout the entire body. But there are other things that are manufactured inside those factories that will be used within the city. So they package those up and they distribute them around the inside of the city to be where they're going to be needed. So that is a blown up view of the Golgi apparatus. Next, we have the mitochondria. I call them power plants because that's essentially what they do. The power plants are going to vary in number from city to city. For example, your heart, muscle, and your brain are huge users of energy. So they could have 10,000 of these power plants in each and every single one of their cells. Some of your liver cells have 2,000 power plants in them. It all depends on how much energy that particular city is going to need in order to operate and to keep you functioning and alive. So those power plants, called mitochondria by the scientists, can change in number based on your activity level. If you're an athlete, your body's going to produce lots of them in all your muscle tissues so that they can produce enough energy to supply those muscles' needs to function. But if you're a couch potato, only very few of those power plants are actually going to be functioning, and so there won't be that many. But they all operate in a similar manner. They take in oxygen, they take in that glycogen, that glucose that's been converted into that compact form, and they take in vitamins and minerals, and CoQ10 is used every single time one of them fires, and a little bit of copper. There's a lot of different things that are brought in to the inside of these power plants before the fire is lit. Now there's a hormone that's manufactured in these Golgi apparatuses and the endoplasmic reticulums, the factories of your thyroid gland. They're called thyroid hormones. There's T3 and T4. There's two of them. T3 is only 6% of what's produced, and it's the active form. The T3 is what lights the fire inside these power plants. The T4 are just spare energy igniters. They are there if needed. They can be converted into T3s so that there's more of them. The number of T3s that are in each cell is going to determine how often and how rapidly all of these mitochondria, these power plants, are going to fire. So as soon as T3 hormone enters that power plant, a fire will be lit. It's like a flash of light. It's going to be very rapid and very powerful, and it's going to produce what's the energy that's going to be needed to run virtually everything in that city, including all of those transporters and receptors and gates and those antigens and the warehouses, the city hall, the factories. All of that needs energy. And so it's produced by these power plants. And every time one of those fires are lit, 60% of that combustion is going to result in heat. And that heat is your body's temperature, your body heat. And that's where it comes from. 37 trillion of these cities constantly lighting these fires and burning fuel, which can either be glucose or fatty acids. And each time they do, they generate enough heat to keep your body warm and regulated at the temperature that it is. 40% of that will become energy, that ATP as it's called, and that will be used within the city to fire everything, to control everything, and to keep that city going. Next is a picture. You can see a blow up of one of those power plants. Now there's called lysosomes. That's your waste management company. And like any city, it will produce a lot of waste products. Every time those power plants fire, they cause the production of some waste products. If it's burning fat, it could be toxins, acidic toxins, which have to be gathered and then put into the bloodstream so that it can be collected and gotten rid of. So the waste management services plays a very important role. And we're going to learn about one aspect of this called autophagy, which is extremely important, not only for your longevity, but for your overall health. You're going to learn how to stimulate those so that they work even better than they usually often do. So lysosomes are very important. Next, again, is your antigens. We've been talking about them off and on. Now you're going to actually see what they look like. They're located up here in the upper right-hand corner. But they're not just there like you saw before. They're actually all around the outside of every single one of your 37 trillion cities. So this is what they might look up close up. You see those antennae that are sticking up into where the blood would flow by? Those antennas are looking for things that should not be in the blood, intruders, which can again be a lot of things. It can be toxins because of leaky gut or leaky lymph. It could be chemicals from even your medications. It can be fecal matter because of leaky gut. It could be pathogens, bacteria, viruses, any number of things that's in the blood that shouldn't be. Chemicals from your processed foods or from your fast foods or your junk foods. All of those things are going to be identified by those antigens that will then be used to alert your immune system to get rid of them. So you're going to discover that what you have just learned is going to help you to understand what your body is attempting to tell you through your symptoms. And you're going to find that understanding these cellular basics is going to provide a very solid foundation for your learning of all the rest of this course and many other things. You will now begin to understand what is actually causing some of those symptoms. So it's going to aid you in your quest to gain control over your diabetes. You're going to see this come back again and again in this course, explaining why things are happening. So we're getting close to the point where you can start learning to apply the 6 steps that are going to ultimately help you take charge of your diabetes. So now proceed to lesson number 2, part number 3. You're going to learn how diabetes messes with cellular function. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and please pay it forward. Share what you've learned with others. Thank you.